Holloway estate hadn't been touched in years. Ivy strangled the stone walls, the windows were clouded with dust, and the gravel driveway was half swallowed by moss. When Nora Holloway stepped out of her rental car, the silence was so complete it felt staged. No birds. No wind. Just the creak of the old iron gate swinging shut behind her. She hadn't planned to return. Not after Lily. But the letter changed everything. It arrived 2 weeks after her mother's funeral. No return address. Just her name, written in a familiar hand, tight, slanted, deliberate. Nora, come home. The truth is beneath you. R. She didn't know anyone named R. But the handwriting was unmistakable. It was her mother's. Inside the house, the air was stale. Furniture covered in white sheets. The chandelier above the foyer hung crooked, one bulb flickering. Nora walked slowly, her boots echoing across the hardwood floor. Every step felt like a memory. The study door was locked. That wasn't unusual. Her mother had always kept it sealed. But the basement door, once nailed shut, was now slightly ajar. She hesitated. The last time she'd seen that door open was the night Lily disappeared. The memory came uninvited, Lily's scream, the thud of footsteps, the silence that followed. Nora had been 13. Lily was 10. Their father said she'd run away. Their mother said she'd been taken. The police said there was no evidence of either. And then the house went quiet. Nora stepped toward the basement door. The hinges groaned as she pushed it open. A wave of cold air met her, damp and metallic. She flicked on the light. The bulb buzzed, then glowed weakly. The stairs descended into shadow. She didn't go down. Not yet. Instead, she turned toward the study. The door was still locked, but the key, her mother's old brass key, was missing from its hook. She searched the drawers, the kitchen, even the attic. Nothing. Until she found the novel. It was hollowed out. Inside, the key. And a photograph. Lily, standing beside a man Nora didn't recognize. The photo was dated 2 months before Lily vanished. Nora stared at it for a long time. Then she unlocked the study. The room was untouched. Dust coated the desk, the bookshelves, the armchair by the window. On the desk sat a journal. Her mother's. The entries were erratic, some lucid, others rambling. Lily was never meant to stay. He said she was dangerous. I didn't believe him. I should have. The basement holds more than memories. It holds the truth. Nora closed the journal and sat in the armchair. Outside, the wind had picked up. The trees swayed. The house groaned. She wasn't alone. The sound of tires crunching gravel pulled her from the memory. A car pulled into the driveway. A familiar one. Caleb. He stepped out, looking older than she remembered. Gray at the temples, a limp in his step. He carried a duffel bag and wore the same guarded expression he always had. I got the letter too, he said, without greeting. Nora nodded. You think it's from her? Caleb shrugged. She's dead. But maybe she left something behind. They didn't hug. They didn't ask about each other's lives. They just walked into the house together, like soldiers returning to a battlefield. Caleb went straight to the basement door. It was nailed shut, he said. I know, Nora replied. Now it's open. They descended slowly. The air grew colder with each step. At the bottom, the concrete floor was damp. The walls were lined with shelves, empty, except for a few rusted tools and a broken lantern. At the far end, a steel door. Bolted shut. Nora held up the brass key. It fit. The door creaked open, revealing a small, windowless room. Concrete walls. A child's mattress. Crayon drawings on the floor. And a tape recorder. Caleb picked it up. You think it still works? Nora nodded. Try it. He pressed play. A child's voice. Lily. He said I had to stay here. That I was broken. But I'm not. I'm not. Then, footsteps. A man's voice. Muffled. Angry. Then, a scream. Caleb dropped the recorder. That's Dad. Nora felt her knees buckle. Their father had died years ago, allegedly of a heart attack. But the tape was dated 3 months before Lily vanished. They left the basement in silence, locking the steel door behind them. Upstairs, Nora spread the drawings across the dining room table. Each one told a story. Each one was a memory. One drawing showed the estate from above, with a red X mark over the basement. Another showed a cabin in the woods, with smoke curling from the chimney. Nora stared at it. The cabin. Caleb frowned. You think she went there? I think she was taken there. They searched the house for more clues. In the attic, Nora found a box labeled, Lily, 1999. Inside, photographs, medical records, and a letter addressed to her mother. She's not like the others. She remembers things she shouldn't. Keep her safe. Keep her quiet. The letter was unsigned. Caleb read it twice. Who sent this? Nora shook her head. I don't know. But someone knew what was happening. That night, Nora couldn't sleep. She sat in the study, flipping through her mother's journal. One entry stood out. Margaret warned me. She said Lily was dangerous. But I saw a child. Not a threat. Margaret. Their aunt. She had helped raise them after their father died. She had always been distant, guarded. Nora called her the next morning. I need to talk, she said. Margaret's voice was flat. You shouldn't have gone back. I found a basement. A long pause. Then, I'll come to you. She arrived that afternoon, dressed in black, her face drawn and pale. She didn't hug Nora. She didn't greet Caleb. She walked straight into the study and sat down. You found a key, she said. Nora nodded. Why did you lie? Margaret looked at her with tired eyes. Because the truth would have destroyed you. Caleb stepped forward. What truth? Margaret sighed. Lily wasn't your sister. She was my daughter. The room fell silent. I gave her to your parents when she was 3, Margaret continued. I couldn't raise her. Not after what happened. What happened? Nora asked. She was part of a program. Experimental. Psychological conditioning. I didn't know until it was too late. Caleb's voice was sharp. You gave her to Dad. Knowing what he'd do. I thought he'd protect her. But he was afraid. He saw things in her, memories, behaviors, that reminded him of the program. Nora's hands trembled. So he locked her away. Margaret nodded. And your mother tried to undo it. But she was too late. Nora stood. Lily's alive. Isn't she? Margaret didn't answer. Margaret's silence was louder than any confession. She sat in the study, her hands folded tightly in her lap, eyes fixed on the floor. Nora paced the room, her thoughts racing. Caleb stood by the window, arms crossed, watching the woods as if expecting someone to emerge. "You knew she was alive," Nora said, her voice low but sharp. Margaret didn't flinch. "I suspected. You let us mourn her. You let Mom die thinking she'd failed." Margaret's voice cracked. "She didn't fail. She tried to save her. But your father, he was too far gone." Caleb turned. "What exactly did he do?" Margaret hesitated. "He isolated her. Said she was dangerous. That she remembered things she shouldn't." "From the program?" Nora asked. Margaret nodded. "He was part of it. Not officially. But he had access. He believed in it. Thought it could fix people. Thought it could fix himself." Nora sat down, her legs trembling. "What was the program?" Margaret looked at her. "It was called Project Echo. Designed to study memory retention in children exposed to trauma. They believed certain children could recall things they hadn't lived. Genetic memory. Echoes." Caleb scoffed. "That's insane." Margaret didn't argue. It was shut down. Quietly. "But Lily was one of the last subjects. And your father, he couldn't let go." Nora whispered, "So he locked her in the basement." Margaret nodded. "Because she remembered too much." Outside, the wind picked up. The trees swayed. The house groaned. Nora checked the security cameras again. One showed movement in the woods. A figure. Still. Watching. She ran outside, flashlight in hand. The figure vanished, but left behind a note on the porch. "You're close. But not ready." Caleb read it and said, "Someone's playing with us." Nora disagreed. "Someone's guiding us." They returned to the cabin the next morning. The woods were quiet, the air heavy. The cabin looked abandoned, but inside, it wasn't empty. Drawings covered the walls. Hundreds of them. Each one signed L. One showed Nora and Caleb standing in front of the estate. Another showed Lily, older, watching from the trees. Then they saw her. She stood in the doorway, her face half-shadowed. Her hair was longer, streaked with gray. Her eyes were the same, white, intelligent, haunted. "You found the key," she said. Nora stepped forward. "Why didn't you come back?" Lily replied, "Because I wasn't ready. And neither were you." Inside, she showed them her journals, scraps of paper, drawings, letters. Each one a memory. Each one a clue. "I remembered everything," she said. "And I needed you to remember too." Caleb sat down, stunned. "We thought you were dead." "I was," Lily said. To them. She revealed the truth. Their father had been part of Project Echo. When the program was shut down, he took Lily in, not to protect her, but to control her. He feared what she knew. What she might say. "He locked me away," Lily said. "Not because I was dangerous. But because I knew." Nora's hands trembled. "Why didn't Mom stop him?" "She tried," Lily said. "But she was afraid. Of him. Of what I might say." Lily handed Nora a file. "This is everything. You decide what to do with it." Back at the estate, Nora plugged in the drive. videos, reports, interviews. One file stood out, a recording of her father. They don't understand. Memory is power. If we control what they remember, we control who they are. Caleb watched in silence. Lily turned away. Nora whispered, "We have to publish this." They contacted a journalist. Her name was Maya Chan. She met them at a cafe in town, her eyes wide as she read the files. "This is huge," she said. "But dangerous." Nora nodded. "We're ready." Maya agreed to publish a series of articles, starting with the Holloway estate and expanding into Project Echo. She promised protection, anonymity, and reach. But the threats came quickly. Anonymous emails, phone calls, a break-in at the estate. Caleb installed cameras. Lily slept with a knife under her pillow. Nora kept a flash drive on her at all times. One night, the cameras caught a figure near the greenhouse. Tall. Hooded. Watching. Nora ran outside, flashlight in hand. The figure didn't move. She approached slowly, heart pounding. "Who are you?" she called. The figure turned and walked into the woods. She followed. Branches snapped underfoot. The air grew colder. The trees thicker. She lost sight of him, but found something else. A cabin. Not Lily's. Smaller. Older. Hidden. She approached the door. It was ajar. Inside, a desk. A chair. A wall covered in photographs. Children. Wires. Machines. And in the center, a photograph of Lily. Nora stepped back. "What is this?" A voice behind her. "You shouldn't be here." She turned. The man from the crowd. The guard. He stepped into the light. His face was lined, weathered. His eyes were cold. "You're digging too deep," he said. Nora stood her ground. "We're exposing the truth." He shook his head. "You're waking ghosts." She reached for her phone. He didn't stop her. "Take your pictures," he said. "But know this, Echo never died. It just changed names." She snapped photos. The wall. The desk. The files. Then she left. Back at the estate, she showed Lily. Lily stared at the photographs. "I remember him." Caleb frowned. "We need to find out what Echo became." Maya dug deeper. She traced funding trails, shell companies, research grants. One name emerged, Novus Insight. A biotech firm. Private. Powerful. Secretive. Their Echo, Maya said. Rebranded. Refunded. Restarted. Nora whispered, "And they're still experimenting." They found a whistleblower. A former technician. He agreed to meet in a motel outside town. His name was Ben. He looked nervous. Paranoid. But he talked. "They're using children again," he said. "But differently. Not memory. Behavior. Conditioning." Lily asked, "Are they hurting them?" Ben nodded. "They call it adaptive imprinting. They think they can shape personalities. Build perfect minds." Nora felt sick. "Where?" Ben hesitated. "There's a facility. Underground. Remote. I can get you in." Caleb leaned forward. Why help us? Ben looked at Lily. Because I saw what they did to you. And I couldn't stop it. They planned the infiltration carefully. Ben provided access codes, maps, schedules. The facility was in Maine, buried beneath a research center. They drove there at night, posing as consultants with forged credentials. Maya stayed behind to coordinate media coverage. If they failed, she would release everything. The woods surrounding the facility were silent. The air was thick with fog. Ben led them to a service hatch, hidden beneath a pile of leaves. Inside, the corridor was damp and narrow. They moved slowly, the flashlight beams cutting through the darkness. At the end, a grate. Caleb pried it open. Beyond, a storage room. Empty. They sleep inside. Ben checked his watch. You have 20 minutes. They moved quickly, navigating the halls with precision. Lily led them to the containment wing. The door was locked. Caleb bypassed the keypad. The door slid open. Inside, rows of rooms. Glass walls. Children sleeping. Monitors blinking. Lily found Myra's room. She stood at the glass, her hand trembling. Myra looked up. Their eyes met. Lily whispered, "It's me." Myra stared, confused. Then she stood, slowly, cautiously. Caleb broke the lock. The door opened. Lily stepped inside. Myra backed away. "Who are you?" Lily knelt. "I'm your mother." Myra's eyes filled with tears. "They said you were dead." Lily shook her head. "I'm here. I'm real. And I'm taking you home." Caleb checked the hallway. "We need to move." They gathered the children. As many as they could. Nora led them through the service corridor, back to the woods. But the alarm blared. Guards flooded the halls. Ben stayed behind, blocking the path. They ran. Outside, vans waited. Volunteers. Activists. They loaded the children, sped away into the night. Back at the estate, Myra sat in the study, wrapped in a blanket. Lily knelt beside her, brushing her hair back, whispering stories, memories, promises. Nora watched them, tears in her eyes. Caleb stood at the window, watching the woods. "They'll come for us," he said. Nora nodded. "Let them." The first article dropped the next morning. Maya Chen published it under the headline, "The Basement Key, Inside the Holloway Estate and the Echo Experiment." It was a carefully crafted exposé, part history, part horror. It detailed the origins of Project Echo, the Holloway family's involvement, and the rediscovery of the second basement lab. Names were redacted, but the implications were clear. By noon, the estate was surrounded. Reporters. Protesters. Curious locals. Police cruisers parked at the edge of the property, lights flashing but no sirens. Caleb stood on the porch, arms crossed, watching the crowd grow. Nora sat inside, her phone buzzing non-stop. Lily paced the hallway, her fingers twitching. "They're here," she said. "But not for us." Nora looked up. "What do you mean?" "They're here for the story. For the spectacle. But the ones who matter, they're still in the shadows." That night, someone broke into the estate. They didn't steal anything. They didn't vandalize. They left a single item on the dining room table. A photograph. It showed Myra as a child, sitting in the lab chair, wires attached to her temples. Her eyes were closed. Her hands clenched. The image was grainy, black and white, stamped with the Echo logo. Caleb stared at it. "They're warning us." Lily disagreed. "They're reminding me." Maya published the second article, Echoes of Memory, The Children of Project Echo. It named Dr. Voss. It included testimonies from other survivors. It exposed the funding trail, private donors, government grants, corporate sponsors. The backlash was immediate. Threats. Lawsuits. Denials. But the truth was out. One night, Mira found a letter on her pillow. "You are not alone. We remember too." It was unsigned. She showed it to Nora. "There are others." Caleb nodded. "We need to find them." They created a website. A forum. A place for survivors to share their stories. Within days, dozens of messages appeared. Some were vague. Others were detailed. One stood out. "I was L07. I remember the chair. The wires. The voice that told me to forget." Mira replied. "I was L03. I remember too." The forum grew. The movement grew. Maya's articles were picked up by national outlets. Documentaries were proposed. Interviews requested. But the threats didn't stop. One morning, Caleb's car was found burned at the edge of the woods. No note. No witnesses. Just a message carved into the ground. "Stop digging." Nora refused. She contacted a lawyer. Filed for protection. Filed for investigation. Filed for justice. Lily spoke at a press conference. Her voice was steady. Her eyes were clear. "I was locked in a basement because I remembered things I wasn't supposed to. But memory is not a crime. It's a truth. And truth deserves light." The crowd erupted. But in the back row, a man stood silently. Watching. Mira saw him. She froze. Nora turned. "Who is that?" Mira whispered. "He was one of the guards." Caleb moved toward him. The man vanished into the crowd. That night, Mira couldn't sleep. She sat in the study, staring at the basement key. "I want to go back," she said. Nora nodded. "Then we go together." The basement hadn't changed. The air was still damp, metallic. The walls still bore the faint outlines of crayon drawings, faded by time and moisture. The steel door at the far end stood closed, but not locked. Mira stepped forward, her hand trembling as she reached for the handle. Nora and Lily stood behind her, silent. She opened the door. Inside, the lab was exactly as they'd left it. The chair in the center. The wires. The shelves of files. But something was different. A smell. Faint. Chemical. Caleb stepped in first. "Someone's been here." Nora scanned the room. A file lay open on the desk. Fresh. Not one they'd seen before. She picked it up. Subject, MH status, active location, Holloway Estate risk level, elevated recommendation, monitor. Contain if necessary. Mira stared at the page. "They still think I'm dangerous." Lily whispered, "They're watching you." Caleb checked the cameras. One had been disabled. Another showed static. The third, pointed at the greenhouse, showed a figure. Tall. Hooded. Still. Nora ran outside, flashlight in hand. The figure didn't move. She approached slowly, heart pounding. "Who are you?" she called. The figure turned and walked into the woods. She followed. Branches snapped underfoot. The air grew colder. The trees thicker. She lost sight of him, but found something else. A cabin. Not Lily's. Smaller. Older. Hidden. She approached the door. It was ajar. Inside, a desk. A chair. A wall covered in photographs. Children. Wires. Machines. And in the center, a photograph of Mira. Nora stepped back. "What is this?" A voice behind her. It was about resonance. Lily whispered, "She's the next wave." The scientist agreed. "But she's not alone. Others are emerging. Children with similar patterns. Similar dreams." Maya published a follow-up, Echo Children, the Next Generation. It was cautious, respectful, but powerful. It called for ethical oversight, trauma-informed care, and global awareness. The Holloway estate became a center for recovery and research. Survivors gathered there. Therapists volunteered. Artists taught workshops. Mira led a drawing class for children who had been part of Nova's Insight. One day, she stood before the group, holding a sketch. "This is the door," she said. "Behind it is everything they tried to hide. But we're not afraid anymore." The children nodded. Outside, the wind rustled the trees. The estate stood tall, no longer a monument to silence, but a beacon of truth. Spring arrived quietly at the Holloway estate. The trees bloomed in soft pinks and whites. The basement gallery was filled with light. Myra's drawings had shifted, less shadow, more light. Less pain, more possibility. She spoke more now. Her voice was soft, deliberate. She asked questions about her past, her mother, the program. Lily answered everything, even when it hurt. One afternoon, Mira sat with Nora in the study. "Do you think I'm broken?" she asked. Nora shook her head. "I think you're powerful." Mira looked down. "They said I was dangerous." "They were afraid of what you remembered," Nora said. "But memory isn't danger. It's truth." Maya Chan's final exposé was ready. She called it The Basement Key, a legacy of silence. It was a multimedia piece, articles, interviews, footage, survivor testimonies. It named names. It traced funding. It exposed the full scope of Nova's Insight's operations. The release was coordinated with legal filings. Caleb worked with attorneys to build cases against the biotech firm. Lily's anonymous testimony was included. Myra's drawings were used as evidence of transference and imprinting. The public reaction was overwhelming. News outlets picked up the story. Talk shows debated the ethics of memory manipulation. Survivors from other programs came forward. A congressional hearing was scheduled. But Nova's Insight fought back. They released a statement denying all allegations. Claimed the footage was fabricated. Accused Maya of defamation. Filed injunctions to block publication. Maya refused to back down. She went live on national television, holding up the basement key. "This is not just a symbol," she said. "It's a truth. A door that was locked for too long. And today, we open it." The broadcast went viral. Within hours, Nova's Insight stock plummeted. Their board resigned. Their labs were raided. Their servers ceased. But the damage was deeper. Families demanded answers. Children asked questions. Therapists reported spikes in trauma disclosures. Schools began teaching about inherited memory and psychological imprinting. Mira watched it all unfold. She sat in the attic, sketching. Her drawings grew more complex, scenes she hadn't lived, faces she hadn't met. But they felt real. One image showed a girl standing in a hallway lined with doors. Each door had a symbol. An eye. A spiral. A key. Lily saw it and froze. This was the lab, she said. Before they shut it down. Mira looked up. I saw it in a dream. Caleb leaned in. Echo isn't gone. It's dormant. Nora nodded. And Myra's waking it. They contacted a neuroscientist, Dr. Evelyn Marsh's former colleague. He studied Myra's drawings, her memories, her responses. She's not recalling, he said. She's channeling. Echo was never just about memory. It was about resonance. Lily whispered, she's the next wave. The scientist agreed. But she's not alone. Others are emerging. Children with similar patterns. Similar dreams. Maya published a follow-up, Echo Children, the Next Generation. It was cautious, respectful, but powerful. It called for ethical oversight, trauma-informed care, and global awareness. The Holloway estate became a center for recovery and research. Survivors gathered there. Therapists volunteered. Artists taught workshops. Mira led a drawing class for children who had been part of Nova's Insight. One day, she stood before the group, holding a sketch. This is the door, she said. Behind it is everything they tried to hide. But we're not afraid anymore. The children nodded. Outside, the wind rustled the trees. The estate stood tall, no longer a monument to silence, but a beacon of truth. The Holloway estate was quiet again. Not silent, just still. The kind of stillness that comes after a storm, when the air is heavy with memory and the ground is soft with change. Mira sat on the porch steps, sketchbook in her lap, pencil moving slowly. Her drawings had shifted, less shadow, more light. Less pain, more possibility. Lily watched her from the doorway, arms folded, heart full. She still dreamed of the basement sometimes, of the steel door, the chair, the voice that told her to forget. But now, when she woke, she reached for Myra's hand and remembered that forgetting was no longer necessary. Caleb had turned the estate's west wing into a research library. Survivors donated journals, drawings, letters. Therapists contributed studies. The walls were lined with stories, raw, unfiltered, real. Nora's memoir had gone to print. The cover showed the original basement key, resting on a cracked concrete floor. The subtitle read, What We Remember, We Reclaim. Early reviews called it a masterclass in emotional truth. She didn't care about the praise. She cared that people were reading. That they were listening. One afternoon, a letter arrived. It was handwritten. No return address. Just a name, Mira Holloway. Inside, a drawing. It showed a girl standing in front of a mirror. In the reflection, a woman. Strong. Steady. Smiling. Mira looked at it for a long time. Then she added her own sketch, 2 hands reaching across the glass. She gave it to Lily. I think I'm ready, she said. Lily nodded. To speak. To remember, Mira replied. They organized a gathering at the estate. Survivors, families, researchers. The basement gallery was open to the public for the first time. Mira stood at the center, surrounded by her drawings. She spoke. I was part of something I didn't choose. I was shaped by people who didn't see me. But I remember. And I chose to be seen. The room was silent. Then someone clapped. Then another. Then everyone. Outside, the wind stirred the trees. The sky was pale blue. The air smelled like autumn. Caleb walked with Nora through the garden. We did something good, he said. Nora nodded. We did something necessary. Lily joined them. And it's not over. They agreed. The Echo Recovery Foundation expanded. New centers opened. New survivors came forward. Myra's drawings were published in a collection titled Echoes. It became a resource for trauma therapy worldwide. One evening, Myra found another box in the attic. It was smaller. Older. Inside, a single photograph. It showed a woman in a lab coat, standing beside a child. The woman's face was blurred. The child's was not. It was Myra. She brought it to Lily. Do you know her? She asked. Lily stared. No. But I think she knew you. They contacted Maya. She traced the photo to a defunct research facility in Canada. A splinter cell. Unregistered. Unregulated. Nora frowned. Echo 2. Caleb nodded. We need to go. They traveled quietly. The facility was abandoned. But inside, they found files. Drawings. Journals. And a name. Myra Holloway. She had been studied. Monitored. Predicted. But she had escaped. They returned to the estate with the files. Myra read them slowly, carefully. Then she burned them. I don't need their story, she said. I have mine. Lily hugged her. And it's beautiful. Spring turned to summer. The estate bloomed. The basement gallery expanded. Myra taught art therapy to children who had never spoken before. She helped them draw their silence. Shade their shadows. Find their light. One morning, she stood before her class, holding a sketch. This is the last door, she said. Behind it is everything they tried to erase. But we remember. And we choose what to keep. The children nodded. Outside, the wind rustled the trees. The estate stood tall, no longer haunted, but hallowed. In the attic, a new box waited. Inside, a sketchbook. Blank. And a note. For what comes next. Myra smiled. She picked up her pencil. And began.